It will save you time and money. Make everyday household jobs a breeze, from mattresses to mini bikes. You'll get the Air Dragon for the low factory direct price of only $39.99. But with your order today, we'll upgrade you to our Air Dragon Pro, which includes our LED light absolutely free. But wait, you can double the offer and get a second Air Dragon. Just pay a separate fee. Air Dragon with free LED is just $39.99. Order now.
Call 1-800-281-1657 to get your Air Dragon. Call now or go to buyAirDragon.com. So call 1-800-281-1657. That's 1-800-281-1657. Order now.
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS or state, this may be the most important phone call you'll ever make.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. But listen.
Your tax problem is settled. You only owe $3,500.
What a great message.
I owed $11,000 on my taxes. But now?
Congratulations. You only owe $2,068.
How's that sound?
If you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS or state, then you owe it to yourself to call this number or go to tax10000.com. Even if you are already at the point where you're struggling with levies and garnishments, let our experts help guide you through the process of negotiating a tax settlement.
We owed the IRS $48,000.
But check out what we actually paid.
Are you sitting down? You only owe $3,571.
It's a short ride from your neighborhood to your naturehood. Find fun activities to do, like boating and biking, or camping and hiking, plus much more. To find a neighborhood park or green space near you, visit discovertheforest.org.
Start your morning right with a healthy serving of Boomer and Geo.
And throw it on so we all can watch it.
First, add your sports.
This is where we talk about the depth of the Yankees.
A dash of salt.
Shut up, I don't really care what you're doing. All I care about is what I'm doing.
A hint of spice.
But I really do believe that they can win this whole thing. Give me a reason why they can't.
Then let it cook for 4 hours. Boomer and Geo. Weekday mornings starting at 6 on CBS Sports Network.
Here's the results. Race number 8, the Tyre Power Tasmania Super Sprint. 2.3 second gap. Craig Lowndes over Scott McLaughlin. Jamie Whincup in position 3. That'll be a popular podium. Then James Courtney in 4th position. Confirmation of more good performances from those guys. And in fact,
of limiting loss of life if you can't prevent it altogether. Tonight I'll be watching. I hope you do too. I wanted to go on Vice News because I knew we could reach an audience we don't always get to touch here at NRA TV. All I am hoping for, and I know this is a tall order, I'm just hoping that they are fair. We shall see. If they aren't, I will be calling them out on this program Monday morning, and I hope I don't have to do that. Government waste is ever present. Nowhere is that more evident than at the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. Much of the work done there is legitimate. Some of it, though, is not. And now Democratic gun hater Senator Chuck Schumer wants the CDC to start studying gun violence. This is the latest tactic of the left. Create agencies and commissions across the country to focus on gun violence. Now he wants the CDC involved. The research will do nothing to promote a safer nation. It will only fan the flames of dissent, and Chuck Schumer knows this. It's what he and the rest of his anti-gun party wants. Appropriations funding prohibits any federal agency from advocating or promoting gun control. In the end, though, it's what Schumer wants. The bottom line is wasteful studies are nothing new. As Forbes point out, CDC bureaucrats have been funding research into such crucial questions as to why lesbians tend to be more overweight while gay men do not, why reruns of Seinfeld are so popular, and how quickly husbands and wives make up after a fight. Those are legitimate studies paid for by United States taxpayers. What a waste of money. I'm sure I could come up with much more of these studies, and I could definitely come up with valid answers to all of those questions before without spending millions of dollars to do so. And it's going to be millions of what they spend on gun violence when law enforcement officers know proactive policing can stop this violence that we're seeing on our streets today. Law enforcement officers, once respected and honored for their service, are now being vilified. To fight back, some police training programs are drastically changing. Well, we dispatched veteran Army Ranger and Frontlines correspondent Chuck Holton to help us break all this down with some new training techniques and a cutting-edge virtual reality program there. Chuck, what do you got for us?
Hey, how's it going, Grant? I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan today with Milo Range Training Systems, and the founder, or the guy that invented this whole thing, a Ranger buddy of mine, a guy that was in the Rangers way back when, about 100 years ago, named Rob McHugh.
Hi, Chuck. Good morning. Thanks for that.
No problem. Hey, so Rob, tell me a little bit about this system that we're looking at behind us.
Well, this is Milo Range Training Systems. This is what we call the Theater 300. It's a 300-degree immersive system designed to put officers, military, first responders, basically the people that serve and protect us, into an environment where they can deploy different tactical skills, and one of the big focuses is on de-escalation.
Yeah. Now, one of the coolest things about this program, Grant, is that it's not just a straight. You see, it's a video, right? It's a wraparound 300-degree video in this trainer, but it's almost like one of those choose-your-own-adventure novels I used to read when I was a kid. It's the video actually changes based on what you do. Okay, so as I go through this scenario here, it actually watches me. There's an operator over here, and they can change what happens if I do the right thing or if I do the wrong thing. So let's give it a try.
You bet. So here's the call. Suburban neighborhood. We got a call from an upset woman saying my son he's not taking his meds and he's going crazy and he's screaming and yelling. Happens a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea is to try and de-escalate this guy so that no one gets hurt and everyone goes home safe.
Okay, so I got this laser weapon training system.
A SIRT pistol.
A SIRT pistol. Okay, so I'm gonna take this. Rob's gonna take the mic, and I'm gonna go through this scenario. It's gonna take about 30 seconds. Let's take a look.
Okay, talk to her.
Ma'am, how can I help you? What?
You're good.
Where is your son, ma'am? Where is he? Can I talk to him? Can I bring him out here?
I don't know. He's been off maybe, I don't know, a couple of days. He hasn't told me anything.
Well,
I'm trying to help.
Okay, all right, just calm down, ma'am. Calm down. Where's your son? Where's your son? Hey, guys, move along over there. You guys, go ahead.
All right. Do you want me to bring him out? You guys want to come in?
Okay.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm really upset. I know you guys have been here before. It's just I can't get through to him. All right?
Okay. So is he armed? Is there any?
Okay. Well, please don't hurt him. Don't.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Very sensitive place. Just don't hurt him.
Tell him to come on out. Oh, is this him? Say, whoa, hang on there, bud. Hang on.
What are you guys doing here?
Hey, we're just here to talk to you. You want to talk? Hey, calm down. Listen.
You guys got to step back. I don't know what the hell is in the right room.
Come on, just calm down. Here, come here. Let's talk.
But this right here, I come here for you to help me, and then what? What the hell's going on? I told you to get out of here.
No, you're all right. Come on.
You're going to get hurt.
Hey, no, put that down. Put that down.
Scan.
Move on. Okay. So you see that, Grant? You can see there, I just shot that guy because he came at me with a knife.
Right.
Okay? Now, that's not really that's not the desired outcome of this. And the reason that they put these kinds of things together and the way that this training is evolving is so that officers can learn to de-escalate and keep that sort of thing from happening. As you can see, anytime you open the newspaper or turn on the evening news, there's a cop getting lambasted in public for shooting somebody, even if he was in fear of his own life. So what we're trying to do is teach these guys ways to de-escalate.
Our nation's first responders don't want to hurt anybody. They all want everyone to go home safe and sound, including themselves.
Yeah, nobody ever wants to shoot anybody. So can you just cue that up at the end there and show me what you would have done?
You bet. We're going to run this one again, and I'm going to employ some different verbal techniques. I'm going to empathize with them a little bit. At the same time, I'm going to be kind of discreetly maybe trying to call for some assistance from some paraprofessionals who may have some more experience in dealing with that. It's critical incident training.
Okay.
And, of course, I've always got to be on the lookout, like you, for dangerous things because things change in a second. That's the reality they have to live in.
All right.
But I'm going to try something different. Let's see if something else happens.
Oh, here. Go ahead.
Hi. Police department.
I'm trying to help him. You got to help me. I'm desperate.
You bet. I'm going to do my best to help. Does he take any medications? Does he have a doctor? Or has he threatened anyone?
All right. Do you want me to bring him out? You guys want to come in?
I want to maintain a safe distance.
I know you guys
Look around.
I can't
Young men, can you guys kind of move along a little bit here? Okay, do me a favor, would you? Just relax. Everyone's going to be okay.
Please, just don't hurt him. Don't hurt him.
We're here to help. We're not here to hurt anyone. Is he inside the... Okay. Hey, young man. Come on over here for a sec.
What are you guys doing here?
We're here to help. She asked us if we could help out. Said you're kind of having a bad day.
I'm not taking that damn medication anymore. It makes me insane.
All right. Hey, listen. Can you talk to me for a second?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. We can put some space between us so you feel more comfortable. I got to help. I got to help your mom, and I got to help you. A couple of minutes, we should be all set. But first, I need to find out why you're so upset. Is it something that someone did?
I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm not on my medication.
Well, do me a favor. Take a seat. You relax. Just take a seat. Just kind of sit down. Relax. Everyone cool out. 2629. I need some help out here with some professional mental incidents.
So you see that, Grant? This system can actually adapt to the stimulus that's been given by the policemen going through this thing. It's really an amazing way that they do this training.
Yeah, I mean, really what happens here is if officers make mistakes, people do, and they do it here, no one gets hurt. We have a chance to debrief it, correct it, make sure that it's tactically correct, technically proficient. They have a do-over chance here. That's not something that these guys get out in the street.
So they've got over 800 scenarios in this thing and making more all the time. So, you know, it's just a great tool for these police departments. You've been through this, haven't you?
Yeah,
Grant?
I've been to one similar. I'm wondering if it was the same, if it was your group, sir, that came down to the Dallas Police Association maybe, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah, you bet. I mean, we're in 40 different countries with these systems, 2,000 different agencies. The Milo system is kind of a ubiquitous platform for delivering this type of training.
Right, and they can make even custom scenarios for each individual department. So,
you know, I was telling
it's pretty amazing stuff.
I should pull the video because the one that I went through, it looked like that house. You walk through the house and you walk out and there's a barbecue scenario and the guy's there with a big barbecue fork and he ends up coming at you.
Got a big fork.
He
runs at you.
Yeah.
Quickly.
He runs at you quickly, yeah. And I shot him and then, you know, the sergeant there says, hey, you know, the media's going to just blast her everywhere. You just shot a man with a barbecue fork. But literally, he was about to kill you with the barbecue fork. And I think it's fascinating just not only send police officers through, but when you show this and you send reporters through, you should send liberals through, you should send every member of Black Lives Matter through to see what police officers
That's a
face.
really great idea, you know, because if you could send more people through this kind of thing and say, okay, you're the cop, now you make the decision of what to do, I think that they would get a much better sense of the kinds of split-second decisions that cops have to make every day when it comes to these kind of things. And there's no cut and dry, there's no template that they can go by that's going to tell them what to do. They've got to use their judgment, and they've got to try to keep themselves and other people safe. And like he says, everybody wants to go home at the end of the day, and this is a great way to help these guys get good training and do it. They can do it over and over again until they get it right.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that scenarios like that, then that program that you have there, sir, is literally saving lives out there. I'm confident of it, so thank you for that.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for the opportunity to kind of show folks what we're doing here, and we're happy to keep trying to make sure that everyone goes home safe.
That's Milo Pro Training Systems, Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's Rob McHugh.
Thank you.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you so much. Fascinating stuff, for sure. All right, folks, up next we will talk with a man who was once an anti-gun liberal, but now he's a lifetime member of the NRA. We'll talk about his story at the top of the next hour. Stick around for that. I'm Grant Stitch.
You're watching NRA TV with Grant Stinchfield.
Notice that the muzzle sticks outside my leg. It's not covering me in any way. If your bolt is already locked to the rear, as it is in this case, I'm going to take the flat of my palm and I'm going to reach up here and hit the bolt release right here. Day one, we start at the basics naturally because we have people that show up here who have never fired a gun before in their lives, all the way to very experienced shooters with real life experience.
Loading magazines, about to go hot. Hornady steel match. This, of course, is a 308 Winchester or 7.62. We're going to put 18 in a 20-round mag. I was 5 inches high, so I need obviously to come 5 down, but because this scope is a half minute per click, I need to times that by 2. Trust me when I say I need to come 10 clicks down, so I'm going to make that right now.
We have what we refer to here as a combat triad, being an equilateral triangle, all sides being equal. And on one leg we've got gun handling, which is loading, unloading, clearing malfunctions. How do you physically handle your firearm? On another leg, we have marksmanship. How do you actually line up the firearm, press the trigger, and actually hit what you're trying to hit? But at the base of that is mindset. And mindset, to me, is really the most important thing, because without the proper mindset, nothing else matters.
Pretty surprised initially that with 308s and from prone, and especially with that just hard plastic, even knurled butt plate, it's pretty easy on the recoil, and it does seem to be a little bit lighter than most piston guns. They say that that's because it's a 2-stage piston, and quite frankly I was a little skeptical at first, but from what I'm seeing, feeling now, it does seem to mitigate recoil a little bit. Well, I indeed moved it 5 inches or 5 MOA down. Need to go 1.5 to the right, and it should be on, but we're going to go verified, and then we can start our real drill. But all of this is fun, especially when you're not buying the ammo.
We start off with very, very basics, regardless of what your skill level is. But the reason it's that base is so important is because everything builds on it. And even our very, very experienced shooters will come here, and they may be using a technique that's different than we teach. So we stress for people to try our way. Come Friday, if you don't want to, that's fine. But in order to get the best out of the training, you've got to build those base blocks. And everything adds on to that.
This course is called the Scrambler. It's 8 targets where you can use a rest, or you can use the various field positions that we've learned. The point is to use the skills that you've learned here and apply them using the 308 rifle. We're shooting steel. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm glad that it's May and not later in the year when it's hot out here in the desert. Now, is this more for training or more for fun, would you say?
For training, simply because in the Marine Corps we train recruits to shoot offhand, kneeling, sitting, prone. But the definition of a Marine Corps rifleman is one who can assume any position and deliver accurate fire. This is such a course. It's not a standard kneeling, prone, nothing. It forces you into unconventional positions. Is the shooter ready?
Shooter's ready.
Move. Move. Nope, there you go. Hit, move. Hit, move. Hit, move. Hey, 4211.
Woo! Perhaps I need to get a little better shape, sir.
Oxygen.
Hold on. That was fun. I'd like to do it again.
Yeah.
That was awesome. We applied what we've been learning last couple days. Had to get in all 3 different positions. Also, you have to adapt.
Improvise.
Improvise. And to get a good time, you need to make that first shot count.
This is a great time. 42 seconds, a great time.
Excellent.
I guess if anything else, we give students the tools, if you will, and we introduce to them a color code and some mental conditioning, which is all part of the colonel's training, so that they have something to start with. The first thing we do is try to make sure that you understand front sight and rear sight and the relation to shooting. So it's front sight, rear sight lined up, and we do 1 shot at a time. Then we start moving you into 2 shots, and the whole thrust of that whole thing is to teach you again front sight, rear sight, get a good sight picture. And by firing 2 shots, getting 3 sight pictures, you learn that you have to watch your front sight.
Okay, and that means sight picture shot, picture shot, and then sight picture scan.
Yes.
In case.
Right.
Okay.
You always want to stay on the target for 1 more sight picture, no matter what you're doing.
Okay.
Sometimes it doesn't work.
Okay.
I get my sight picture, fire 2 shots, keep my sight picture, finger goes straight, look for bad guys. All right? And it sounds like this. Put your ears on. Each time we do this, we teach in a layering. We just layer one thing on top of the other. And we find that that works the best. And at the end of about 2 days, you're going to they realize, wow, I learned a lot. But you don't realize it because we're layering it one on top of the other. And we generally don't move on until everybody's clear on that concept. Then we'll move on to the next, the next, the next.
We shot 5 rounds from a low ready. At first, I didn't really hear them explain what their low ready was, but now I know it's both hands on the gun. Come up, shoot 1 round, low ready again. But anyway, it's not saying much, but from 3 whole yards, I got about a quarter size hole, no malfunction, so it tells me that if I do my job, the gun and this ammo is going to do its job, so it's going to get a little bit tougher now, though.
Be sure to join us next week because Jeff Johnston continues his look at gun sight, in particular handgun shooting. But right after the break, Brian Sheets tests the Loophole Mark 6.
With its VX6 series, Leupold has developed scopes that have a 6 times optical zoom range. Now, that can be pretty impressive on the high ends, but 3 gunners, guys who have semi-automatic self-defense rifles, really in many cases are looking for something that goes from essentially no magnification out to, say, 6 power, because that'll cover everything from 0 to 300 yards. And that's exactly what this multi-gun model in the VX6 line does. This is a 1:6 by 24 millimeter objective scope in a 30 millimeter tube. The scope also has extended twilight lens coatings for good low light performance and Diamond Coat 2 scratch resistant coatings. So the optics are durable, the mechanics are durable, the magnification range is useful. It's got a very generous eye box, so you have an easy time getting your eye on the image. And inside, it's got the SPR reticle, which features essentially a duplex reticle with hash marks both on the vertical and horizontal thin portions of the stadia lines. And in the center is where this really comes into its own, because it has a red dot that has 12 settings right in the center of the reticle. So on the left side of the scope, the red dot is activated by pressing and holding the button here. And what happens is it's got motion sensor technology. So if this scope is set down for 5 minutes, it automatically shuts itself off, saving the CR2032 battery that's inside here. If it's picked up, it will reactivate on its own without having to press the button. But the button By pressing it, turns it on. By pressing it repeatedly, increases the intensity of the dot. So the Leupold multi-gun is really, it's a very versatile scope, and actually the price isn't too bad either, considering you've got Leupold's lifetime warranty and you've got made in America construction. Overall, very versatile scope, a high quality scope, and one that will see you through just about anything.
If there's one word that sums up Bill Ruger's 1022, it's ubiquitous. The guns are everywhere. It's one of the most produced firearms in history.
With the Ruger 1022, you have a design that's really endured. 2014 marks 50 years of the production of this gun, and even by conservative estimates, it's thought that at least 5 million 1022s have been produced. I mean, think about it, 5 million guns. This is a sporting gun we're talking about, not a military design signed off by the U.S. military. So 5 million 1022s. If each one of the people who bought those guns shot one brick, one 500 round count box of ammunition, that's 2.5 billion rounds expended through one design. That's astounding, especially for a sporting firearm.
It was introduced in 1964, and this was an era when most .22 rifles, especially most .22 semi-automatics, were considered to be more youth rifles or casual plinkers. Ruger brought out this semi-automatic rifle. Instead of a tube magazine, it had a 10-round detachable rotary magazine. Very reliable, very accurate, very sturdy, very well made. And just came in and took the American market for .22 rimfire rifles by storm, and it really hasn't taken a back seat to much of anything since then.
The 1022 is probably the most customized and customizable gun in the American sporting firearms market. And one of the reasons that it can be so easily customized is that Ruger designed the way the barrel attaches to the receiver very cleverly so that the barrel simply slips into a hole in the front of the receiver and has a notch cut in its bottom. A V-shaped block then attaches to that and is drawn toward the receiver with two Allen head screws. So changing the barrel on a 1022 is easy to do and can be done with a simple Allen key at home. Bill Ruger in 1964 had the idea that he could put out a inexpensive but innovative .22 rifle, or carbine actually initially, that would really catch people's attention. And as he had a knack for doing, Ruger put features in the gun that he liked. It simply consisted of a good barrel, Lyman sights originally, nice flip-up rear sight, brass bead front sight, a magazine well that took a flush-fitting 10-round rotary magazine, a simple crossbolt safety, in some cases walnut stock, and originally was walnut, and so you had just a very solid feeling, sort of a man-sized feeling rifle in your hands that didn't feel like some of the less expensive produced .22s of the day.
You know, Bill Ruger was a real gun guy, and he learned from not only the guns he made, but the guns he owned. And one of the things that he really liked was the Mannlicher Schonauer carbine, and it had a rotary magazine. So what Bill Ruger did was make a detachable rotary magazine for a .22 rifle. And it's a simple blowback operated carbine called the 10-22, and it holds 10 rounds in its magazine. Of course, Ruger now has 25 and larger magazines, and other people make other magazines that are ridiculous, and frankly, some of them don't work very well. But what he did was essentially create the 22 rifle of the next 50 years.
The 10-22 is easy to customize, or as some people say, trick out. There are all sorts of stocks, scopes, mounts, muzzle devices, additional barrels, higher precision fire control assemblies, buffers, elongated magazine catches, something that, again, the factory eventually caught on to and extended as a factory standard item. But, you know, really these guns can be turned into everything from a tack-driving, heavy-barreled rifle shot just from the bench to a side-folding, extended magazine fun gun for the range and just for targets and plinking. So the 10-22 can fulfill a lot of roles. And at the end of the day, the other thing that's great about the gun is that it's accurate. Some of these guns are super accurate.
There have been so many variations of the 10-22. There have been commemoratives, there have been takedowns, there have been synthetic stocks, there have been carbines, there have been rifles, there have been Mannlicher stocked 10-22s. And really the system that Bill Ruger came up with, his V-block locking system, allows guys to mess with the gun. Meaning, if you want to change the barrel out, if you can read a manual, you can change the barrel. So you want a heavier barrel? No problem. Just a couple screws, put the new barrel in, clamp it all back together, you're good to go. It's an adaptable system. It's a system that you can use just as it is out of the box, or you can spend literally thousands upon thousands of dollars upgrading the gun into some of the most accurate semi-automatic sporting guns ever made. The entire sports have been built up around this gun. The great thing about the 10-22 is, of course, it's still produced today in all kinds of variations, including takedowns. Anyhow, that's all the time that we have for this week. If you like this show and you're not an NRA member, you need to join right now. For more information or to sign up, go to AmericanRifleman.org. I'm Mark Keefe, and I'll see you next week right here on American Rifleman Television.
It can be difficult to practice self-defense shooting techniques due to limitations we have at most gun ranges. But Ken and Whitney have some ideas. In this episode of Tips and Tactics, the mother-daughter training duo will explain a variety of shooting drills that will better prepare you when you need to use a firearm for self-defense.
So what should you be practicing at the range? Well, I'd like you to practice drawing from a holster, shooting on the move, and a variety of other techniques. Most ranges will not allow you to practice these skills unless in a structured class.
Indoor ranges offer climate-controlled shooting bays, while outdoor ranges offer a less confining experience. The more you vary your environment and drills, the better. Consider adding a few of these basic options to your regular range training.
Although there are a few options for low-ready positions, let's just take a look at this one I like to call the active low-ready. In this instance, you're keeping your arms at a 45-degree angle in a safe direction. I like to tell my students to pretend that there's a brick wall under this arm, that they cannot drop this firearm below this point. From this low ready position, you should be able to easily come right up on your target and come safely back down to low ready. Another drill you can practice is sight shooting with tunnel vision breaks. You'd simply come up from the low ready position onto your target, drop your rounds, take your finger off the trigger, come back down to low ready position, look right, look left, back to center, and up on your target to fire again. The key here is to challenge your mind with several tasks to remember. Another good drill to practice is one-handed shooting. Although I would also recommend you practice your non-dominant hand, let's just take a look at your dominant hand only for shooting one-handed. The way to get the proper direction for your hand is simply to hold the firearm as if you were pointing at somebody. Notice the inward cant of my hand when I'm doing this. So when I'm holding my firearm, instead of straight up and down, where recoil of the firearm would force my elbow to bend and possibly cause malfunctions, when I cant my hand inward ever so slightly, the recoil forces my shoulder to accept that movement. Now, one final detail. What do I do with my support hand to keep it out of the way? You simply will make a fist with your support hand. Lay it tightly over your chest, over your center of mass. It keeps that hand out of the way and also gives you one added layer of protection from incoming fire.
Consider having a friend load your magazines for you to vary the number of rounds, but also to incorporate a mixture of live ammo with snap caps. This will test your ability to adapt to unpredictable shooting sequences, perform quick mag changes, and safely clear any malfunctions. If you don't have a friend with you at the range, you can still vary the number of rounds you load in each magazine.
Practice to the point that these skills become muscle memory and second nature. In a life-threatening situation, the ability to perform under stress is vital. Challenge yourself by learning new skills and incorporating stress into your training.
Remember that regardless of what you're practicing, the NRA's rules for safe gun handling should always be applied.
Great advice, ladies. Like Whitney said, mixing up some non-live rounds like snap caps or dummy rounds with live rounds will help your training in a number of ways. This will help you learn how to quickly clear a malfunction, as Whitney demonstrated with the tap rack method. It also exposes if you are anticipating your shots. For example, if you have a dummy round in the chamber at the moment you press the trigger and your upper body moves forward, that means you are anticipating. If you find yourself doing this, make sure you keep practicing until you fix this bad habit. Remember, it's not about how much you practice, but the quality of your training. Be safe, be responsible, and I hope I see you at the range soon. I am Gabby Franco, and I'll see you next time in another episode of Tips and Tactics, sponsored by Cabela's Outdoor Fund.
Now this week we continue our look at guns and ATVs at the Gunsight Training Center. This week's Rifleman Review is the Smith & Wesson Model 66, and that's a K-frame stainless .357 Magnum. Our old gun this week is the German MP40, one of the most iconic submachine guns of World War II. But right now, let's head for Gunsight.
Getting the show on the road. Now we're fully loaded up SR762 rifle. Got the SR45 handgun in there. All the safety gear, gloves. Let's head to the range.
Gunsight is a private shooting school. It's the oldest continuously running shooting school in the United States. And what we teach here is basic firearms self-defense. We offer many courses in handgun, rifle, and shotgun, long-range rifle. And we also run hunting courses, different specialty courses that people request and we can do. So it's really a large collection, but mainly the main thrust of Gunsight is teaching people safe gun handling and defending themselves with a handgun.
Tactical reload, of course. It's when you have time to reload and you don't have to reload. You're trying to top off your magazine, so it's not an immediate threat, but there could be, so you're reaching for another magazine. Number one, you don't want this magazine to hit the ground. You want to save it because there's still ammo in there. But the biggest issue for me is, with the new gun, is just getting used to the controls. Now, that's why I'm sitting here practicing. But a 45's grip is pretty big, so everybody has to figure out if this is an ambidextrous magazine release. Some people might prefer pushing it with their trigger finger. Most people, of course, reach around. I have to change my grip angle a little bit so I can get enough leverage, or I could press it with my support hand thumb. But right now, that's my biggest issue. I'm trying to figure out what's the easiest for me to do. So, low ready position, reach for my mag, pop the mag out, switch, eyes on target, put this one in my pocket, back on. Now, it's easy to do slow, but under pressure and as you get quicker, it's certainly going to get harder. So that needs to be fluid, and that's what I'm working on.
Our 3 basic handgun courses are 250, 350, and 499. 250 is often referred to as the beginner's course, but it's far from that. On day one, we start at the basics naturally because we have people that show up here who have never fired a gun before in their lives, all the way to very experienced shooters with real-life experience. By Wednesday, everybody is into at least an intermediate level of shooting with pistols, even those who just started for the first time on Monday. So even though it's our beginning, it's valuable for experienced shooters as well.
Brandon, this is pretty tough testing grounds to try out a new handgun, but that's exactly what we did here in the dust and the sun at Gunsight with the new Ruger SR45. I found that when we were shooting those steel plates today, I loved having a 45. I mean, I shot one at about 35 yards that I don't think would have gone down with a 9mm. Can you go through the gun real quick for NRA members and viewers that may not know what the SR45 is?
First off, this is a striker-fired gun, so it's going to have a little bit of a lighter striker-type trigger. It's ambidextrous. You've got left hand and right hand magazine release, as well as safeties, external manual safety on both sides. Fairly ergonomic polymer grip. It helps to reduce the weight. And in the back here, we've added this palm swell. This is a reversible back strap. We also have in this gun our 3-dot adjustable sights, and we have a tactile loaded chamber indicator. When you have a loaded chamber, that thing pops up, and if you're doing a chamber check or something at night or in the dark, you can feel that without having to open it up and take a look.
Right.
This gun also has a tactical rail, accessory rail, for mounting, other types of accessories. So we brought this gun out just in 2013. We did some extensive testing with it, of course, but this is the first time running it through the ringer.
What do you think so far?
I'm having a great time.
So far, what do you think is the most important thing you've learned on shooting handgun?
Safety.
Safety?
Obviously the safety and all the safety rules that go with it, and presentation, and keeping it close to your body, and the self-defense part of it's really cool.
Let's load back up and get it back out there. Record. One thing where I was a little bit confused again, and I stay confused most of the time, you told me to slow down, and of course I get out here, you're trying to show off, you get a little excited, and I'm drawing fast, and and you can tell a lot of times you even miss. But for me, it was very tough. I could draw slower when you told me to do that, and I could take my first shot slower, but it was very hard to slow down that pair. Are you supposed to, when you get on your sights on target, are you supposed to shoot it as fast as you can?
You are. However, remember, accuracy supersedes speed every time. You want to be able to hit what you're shooting at. And in actuality, had we continued, you would have gotten faster. But originally, what you have to do is find your position, how you're going to come out, how you're going to put those two shots, and you do it in a rapid fashion, but you certainly can shoot faster once you have put that training in, put that muscle memory, if you will, training into coming out straight where you want to hit.
Okay.
So that's what I was telling you about, because we want to continue, we want accuracy first. When we get accuracy, then we can start picking up speed.
Okay.
And speed is nothing more than the absence of unnecessary motion. So most of my body stays, all my body stays still. The only thing that moves when I shoot is, that's the only two things that move. Nothing else on my body moves.
Oh, training in anything you do is important. No matter what your job is, no matter what your sport is, no matter what your hobbies are, you've got to train if you want to be any good at it. What we're training for is to save your life. There's no second chances, there's no take-backs, there's no do-over agains. If you find yourself in a deadly force encounter, you've got to win this time. You also can't make a mistake that's going to result in somebody else being hurt who shouldn't be. The training that you receive here by far is the most important that you will receive in your life.
This is called the duck of death. So at this time, pick somebody you think you can beat in a gunfight. If you fire, you can change mags, you can do anything you want and holster, but that's it.
At least I lost in a duel and I didn't die. I didn't have another chance.
Afternoon Duck of Death winner!
Thanks. So we had a little duel off. I got into the loser's bracket early and had to scratch, claw, and dig my way out. Old Steve Nessel at Yamaha really pinged me first, but then I won a few. Got to the shoot-off, the final match. I blew the first shot and then won the next two in a row to come back for NRA American Rifle Champion. Yes! But I got lucky.
For most people that come to Gunsight, 250 classes is truly a life-changing experience. They will never look at life the same way that they did before. And we hope that's true for everybody.
Now, the Model 66 is a stainless version of the Combat Magnum. This gun is a 6-shot 357 Magnum built on Smith & Wesson's K-frame. Now, the K-frame goes all the way back to 1899, but the Model 66 dates back to about 1970. The basics of this gun: all stainless steel with a bead-blasted finish. You have a lugged barrel, a shrouded ejector rod, and of course, the cylinder release, typically on Smith & Wesson's, is on the left side of the receiver. This is a gun that guys like Bill Jordan thought would be ideal for police use back when police officers used revolvers. But what you get with the K-frame on this gun is it's smaller, and the metallurgy got good enough that you could take 357 pressures on this frame size. For sights, you've got a fully adjustable rear sight with a white outline. It's adjustable for windage and elevation. The front sight is pinned in place, and it's got a red insert to help with visibility. As a double-action revolver, the Model 66 doesn't need a safety, but Smith & Wesson does provide a safety of sorts, and that's a hammer and trigger blocking safety that's located right above the cylinder latch. Simply give it a half turn there, locks the gun up. The Smith & Wesson Model 66 comes with a 4 1/4 inch barrel, and it's a heavy barrel, so this is a gun that's meant for target work or range work, and the gun weighs just a little bit more than 36 ounces. So this is a substantial gun, but you can probably carry it on your hip pretty much all day. From the factory, the 66 comes in stainless steel, of course, but also it comes with a synthetic grip that's actually ergonomically excellent. But the good news is this is a K-frame. You can put any kind of grip on it you want. When I think about Smith & Wesson revolvers, really this is the gun that I think of. It's in stainless steel, but it's a Smith & Wesson classic that's just as modern today as the day it was introduced. Even though there were other submachine guns ahead of the MP40, including the MP18 and the MP38, really, when you think about World War II, it's the MP40.
In the aftermath of the First World War, there's this interesting dynamic about Germany and its development of automatic firearms. The Versailles Treaty limited the size of the German military, limited what types of weapons they could develop and they could equip their military with. And there are strict limits placed on military armament. The limitations that spoke to police forces were a little bit less strict. And so in the interwar period, Germany begins developing some submachine guns that they develop and then distribute among police forces in an area where they can skirt around one of the provisions of the Versailles Treaty. They develop through a number of different variations and patterns that bring us all the way up to the outbreak of World War II. Shortly before the invasion of Poland, the Germans develop what they call the MP38, the Maschinenpistole 38. The MP38 submachine gun was an interesting innovation for them because it moved away from using a wooden stock and it developed instead an underfolding stock. It made use of a 32-round detachable box magazine holding 32 9x19 millimeter cartridges. It fired from the open bolt blowback position. It used a receiver that was a machined piece of steel, and it immediately demonstrated that it was a fantastic little weapon.
By 1940, the Germans realized that they were going to need a lot more guns. In 1940, April, a new variant of the MP38 operated just the same, was introduced, but it was called the MP40. And the chief difference between the 38 and the 40 was construction. The MP40 was designed for ease of manufacture. It had a stamped receiver. But this is a 9mm submachine gun, perhaps the most iconic submachine gun of World War II, with its magazine well out front, with its stick magazine feeding into it, with a rear pistol grip, and then of course a folding buttstock.
So what you saw in the MP40 was the forerunner of modern designs that would last 50 years after it, even today with the MP5. But the MP40 9mm Luger, moderately powerful chambering, and an almost 9-pound gun that really, did not feel like a pig at all. It held well, it aimed easily, and when you pull the trigger on that thing, full auto, you really have something that's quite controllable, quite easy to aim and keep on target. It's just a pleasure to shoot. Well, with the MP40, Irma Works had gotten to the point where they were really making what could be considered a really almost a modern gun in terms of its design and even selection of materials and use of sheet metal stampings for the receiver rather than large blocks of forged and machined steel.
By producing a submachine gun that made use of a sheet metal tube, making extensive use of not just sheet metal but also a new form of plastic called Bakelite, they come up with a lightweight, handy, compact 9mm full auto submachine gun that's really as simple as it could be. It fired at a cyclic rate that was sufficiently low enough, between 500 and 600 rounds per minute, that you did not need to install fire control components to allow selectability from semi-auto to full auto. You just made a simple full auto trigger mechanism and a cyclic rate of fire slow enough to where you could squeeze off single rounds or easily squeeze off doubles.
The basic difficulty with the MP40 was the magazine. From a design perspective, it was the most troublesome. It was a double column but single position feed magazine, which meant that as the cartridges came up into the magazine and to be fed, 2 columns had to merge into 1. And that caused problems, particularly in Russia, in the mud and the dust, and later in the snow and the ice, because those increased the friction, and the cartridges did not mesh well, and stoppages would ensue. And that was the principal problem with the MP40. Other than that, it was a fairly serviceable, reasonably rugged gun. It was a pioneer from a development perspective. It was a pioneer of submachine guns.
There are 3 main makers of the German MP40 submachine gun: Heinel, the designer of the gun, Erma, and of course Steyr. And of course, later in the war, those plants were fed by subcontractors and components from all over the area. The MP40 really became an icon of the German army during World War II. Even though there were more effective guns introduced, in particular the Sturmgewehr, the MP40 was used by all kinds of troops. It was used by motorcycle troops, by armored troops, by officers, NCOs, and the gun was really only limited by its chambering. I mean, this is a 9mm Luger open bolt blowback operated submachine gun. So its effective range is not that of a rifle, a machine gun, or even the world's first assault rifle, the Sturmgewehr.
The MP40 has a very successful career arming the German military. It continues to arm militaries of the world in the aftermath of the Second World War. It fights on, and it fights on today in motion pictures constantly, where you see this firearm. It's one of the most abundant of them all. And for the price, the MP40 for a time was a great collector's item for the NFA community, the National Firearms Act community that legally own fully automatic firearms. In fact, one of the most desirable things for any NFA collector is to own an actual 100% CNR or Curio and Relic German MP40, meaning it's a 100% German version. For a very long time, leading up to 1986, a more economical alternative to a 100% German CNR MP40 submachine gun was what we started to call the tube guns. So a parts kit got imported into the U.S. A manufacturer in the U.S., in this case a company called DLO, took sheet steel, formed it into an MP40 receiver, assembled an MP40 submachine gun on that U.S.-made receiver, and then registered the firearm. This was prior to 1986, when you could still do that. And so for a very long time, these American-made receiver tube guns were a great economical alternative to owning a 100% German MP40 submachine gun.
The MP40 is truly iconic. When you look at the market today, there are semi-auto only versions as well as a 22. That's all the time that we have for this week. If you like the show and you're not an NRA member, you need to join right now. Go to AmericanRifleman.org. I'm Mark Keefe, and I'll see you next week.
This is my first meeting.
This is our second one. This will be my second one.
Second. This is my first time at the NRA convention. I come every year.
This is the biggest crowd I've seen in 6 years.
I'd always wanted to come to an annual meeting.
Never been to this kind of convention before.
This place is crazy.
It's a camaraderie.
Great opportunity to bring family together.
Check out all the new gear. Get to see a lot of new product. Hang out with people that have the same mindset that we do about the Second Amendment.
Everybody from all across the country coming together with one thing in common. It's our constitutional right to bear arms.
I like hearing from Chris Cox and Wayne LaPierre in person.
We're the most powerful civil rights organization in American history because we fight with a passion, a principle, and an honesty our opponents simply can't match.
It's time to get back to what real, true Americans want. That no matter the threat, the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Where else are our kids going to learn what it looks like to be men and women with integrity and morals and values?
I'm proud that I bring a different voice
and face to the NRA.
We have a society that tells women two things simultaneously. The first thing that they tell us is that we are empowered and we can do anything that we want to do, but you're too stupid to own and carry a gun.
I'm really looking to be a voice for women in Utah and in the NRA.
And what better way to empower myself than to take my safety into my own hands?
We will not let anyone take away our guns. That is what established the United States of America.
The press and the fake news, they say tell their side of the story, and we need somebody like the NRA to tell our side of the story.
I think in this day and age, don't ever be ashamed to have that NRA sticker on the back of your pickup.
The NRA is important because they protect our Second Amendment rights along with all the other constitutional rights.
The NRA is very astute in knowing that it's the First Amendment as well.
It's the front line. They're in Washington lobbying for us. They're in every state.
There's no place I'd rather be and no people in the world I'd rather fight beside. You are the most committed and most worthy group of modern-day patriots. We are the National Rifle Association of America, and we are freedom's safest place.
Gun owners all over this country are eager to again stand and fight for their freedom. We love our country. We cherish our freedom. We believe in America as the greatest nation on earth.
TV with Grant Stinchfield.
Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. I want to bring your attention to an article from the Daily Signal. Amy Swearer wrote a piece debunking many of the myths about campus carry. In the article, concealed carry on campuses is more common and useful than so many in the left-wing media thought. She takes a hard look at concealed carry on college and university campuses and details the history of campus carry in the 9 states that have made special laws surrounding universities and colleges. The argument is detailed with cases and specific instances, but there is one quote that I want you to see. I want you to get familiar with it because it gets to the heart of why so many people carry concealed. Swearer quotes a CDC study that found, quote, self-defense can be an important crime deterrent. And the studies evaluating the actual effects of defensive firearm use constantly find, quote, lower injury rates among gun-using crime victims compared with victims who used other self-protective strategies. That's important because so many gun grabbers ignore that they act like guns aren't an effective tool. They are. And combined with proper training, a firearm can be the most effective tool to help you protect yourself and your family. Police, deputies, troopers, federal agents, many law enforcement officers feel like they are a target. They have a target on their backs, and unfortunately they do. That's largely in part thanks to the mainstream media and the left-wing Hollywood elites who have vilified our brave men and women in blue. Add Black Lives Matter, that group too. Recently, I spoke with Bernard Kerik, the former New York City police commissioner. I asked if he would want his son to go into law enforcement. Here's what he said.
He's on the Newark SWAT team for 8 or 9 years. He's assigned to the FBI task force in the Newark Field Division in the Joint Terrorist Task Force. Would I want him to be somewhere else? Yes. But you know what happens, guys out there, young kids, they want to serve their country. They want to serve their communities. They want to do what they want to do, and there's not much you could do to stop them. Take it from me. There's not much you could do to stop him, because if I had my way, he'd be in law school or he'd be somewhere else. But that's what he wants to do.
Yeah. He is right. True Americans take service to their country seriously. They want to honor and respect the freedoms of this great nation. They put their country and their communities ahead of their own lives, and that's a commitment we should honor and respect. My next guest has a pretty fascinating story. At one point in time, he was not a big fan of guns. He was an anti-gun and anti-NRA leftist. Even at one point, tweeting to Obama, asking him to stop the NRA. But fast forward from that tweet in 2012 to now, and Ryan Moore is a lifetime member of the NRA and a full supporter of the Second Amendment. He joins us now to help tell his story. Ryan, it's a great pleasure to have you on the program.
Hi there, Grant. Good to be on.
Well, thank you for your lifetime membership, sir. We got annual meetings coming up where a bunch will gather here. Is it true? Is that too strong a word to call you an anti-gun leftist?
It sounds pretty funny, but that's absolutely accurate and true. I was extremely anti-gun for my entire adult life, and even, I mean, starting probably in my very early teens. Absolutely. I mean, I was very anti-gun, and I just thought, you know, I didn't know a ton about the NRA or didn't investigate a ton into the NRA specifically, but I just thought, oh, you know, the NRA's got to be terrible. They're pushing guns. You know, I didn't have any super specific thoughts on the NRA other than they've got to be awful.
All right. So then in the end, you were a crime victim, correct? And was that the catalyst to get you to change your views?
Yeah, it didn't change overnight, but it was in 2013 that I was living in San Francisco and I was mugged. Two guys ran, and one guy got in front of me with a gun right in my face. Another guy was right behind me with a gun in the back of my head. I was actually carrying a lot of stuff on me. I had a backpack, and so they, you know, took everything, and you know, once they had everything taken everything from me, they were like, give me your phone too, you know, and it was in my back pocket. So I was like, you know, I took my phone out of my back pocket, and I just wasn't gonna, you know, even though my life was in danger, I just wasn't gonna, you know, hand it to him and say, hey, here you go, here's my phone. So I took it and chucked it over his head. So then he turned around and picked it up, and then he came back at me with his gun and, you know, sucker punched me right in the face, didn't make contact, but he's like, don't throw it, you know, and it's a weird thing that, you know, I didn't even flinch when he did that. I just, you know, I didn't flinch. But if you and I were, you know, having a conversation, eating dinner, having a beer or whatever, and you took a punch at me, I'm sure I would flinch. But anyway, it was an interesting experience. I wasn't really all that afraid, and I wouldn't say, I mean, I guess it was traumatic, but I wouldn't say I was traumatized. But it definitely, I think that's what started getting the ball rolling. But I did, like I said, I didn't really change then. I was looking through my tweets not long ago, and you can still find, if you search my tweets, if you search @Ryan Moore along with the word repeal on Twitter, there's some tweets even